Um, as we start this 2024, I do want to invite all the families. Why do I say all the families? Because I know that there is a little core group within the senior community that is with us whenever there is an event. And I know they will be here, but I want to invite the families because there cannot be a serious revival without prayer and fasting. Am I right? As a church, if we want to move forward, we need to pray. As a church, if we want to move forward and see God's miracles, we need to fast. January 10, all the way to the 19th, we are going to have a week of prayer. It is the 10 days of prayer. Not only are we praying, many churches are praying around the world. So I want to invite you to come. I know sometimes we're like, well, Pastor, there's too much we have, we're going to be starting school. There's a lot of things that are going to be going on. But I want to go back to something that Simon said. I think it was Simon. What if this was the last year we had? Wouldn't you want to have God find you and your family praying? Wouldn't you want God and your and God to find you and your family fasting? Now, fasting doesn't just mean that we are going to starve ourselves to death. No. There's different types of fasting. We'll talk about that next week. But I do want to invite you, please, families, at least one of those days come. Because it is vital for you. And if you have children, it's very important for your children to know that prayer works. So I invite you all to come January 10 to the 19th. Now, what happens on the 20th, it's going to be a very special Sabbath for our church. Because we're going to have a prayer and fasting Sabbath. We're going to have a Sabbath where those of you that want to will join us in fasting. We're going to pray throughout the week. We're going to hear testimonies about prayer throughout the week. But on Sabbath, it's going to be a fasting Sabbath. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you practiced fasting? I see some eyes rolling up. That means it's been a long time. We are in the middle of a warfare, beloved. We are in the middle of a spiritual warfare. And the only way we're going to be able to overcome the enemy is through prayer and fasting. So I want to invite you guys, please, invite you guys to these two special events. As we look into the new year, is this one working now? No? Do I take it off? I'll just leave it there. As we're going into the new year, we have been through a lot. Some families have been through a lot. Myself, most of the church has been through many changes, right? Isn't it good to have a fresh start? Doesn't it feel good to have a fresh start whenever something is overwhelming you? I mean, there's things that that happened this year that I'm looking at them and going, well, I'm gonna have a fresh start. So we're going to start over again. But maybe in your life, you had some family issues. Maybe there were changes in your job. Maybe changes in friendship. Maybe changes in many other parts of your life that for whatever reason it didn't quite work out the way you wanted. But let me tell you, the fresh start coming up. And it is an opportunity that God has given us under His grace and mercy to be able to start all over again. It is a great opportunity God gives us every single day to be able to restart. I remember when I got my first computer. I was going into college. Actually, I was already in college. I was at the university in Montemorelos, and I was in my first year of theology. I realized something before, when it was too late, right? Before going into my second year, was that I needed a computer. I needed a laptop. Because what I've been doing up to then was taking notes by hand, and sometimes the notes were not very clear after taking, notes very quickly. I had not yet had Hebrew or Greek, so to interpret my notes was a little difficult. So I started working during the summer, and I had my very first job as a construction cleanup. Now, keep in mind that up to then, I've never had a tough job. It was jobs here and there. They were not that tough. But now, I was under heat, close to 40-degree weather. And the funny thing was that I picked up the shovel, and the foreman he said to me, you're going to go ahead and make a trench right along this side. Make sure you're going in between the lines. There was 2 white lines on the floor. He said, and it has to be 3 feet deep. I was like, all right, let's go ahead and do it. I remember I got there, put my lunch bag, right in the truck, and I was ready. I was excited. I grabbed the shovel, and I went in, and it bounced up. I just heard a bing. I was like, ooh, I hit a rock. Okay, let's go back a little more. And I went, bing. I was like, whoa, this rock is huge. So I left that, and I grabbed a bar, and I said, you know what, I'm going to soften the dirt a little bit. And I started trying to get into the dirt, but it was rock hard. I struggled. I finally was able to save up enough money, and I bought my first computer. And buying the first computer as a teenager is quite exciting, because you find out about programs you can download into it. You find out about things you can put in the computer. So I started downloading programs here and there, left and right. My computer was getting full with programs. And one of my friends introduced me to a website. He said, this website would let you get any program you want for free. You don't have to pay for it. He said, but you have to be careful. I said, why? Because some of the programs in there have viruses or malware. I said, what could go wrong? So I went ahead and started downloading programs. I said, oh, that game. I remember that game. I always wanted it, but I was never able to get it. Oh, that program. I was never able to get it. I started downloading it. Pretty soon, my computer was ruined. I couldn't turn it on. If it did turn on, it would close back up again. If it didn't close, the programs wouldn't open right. I clicked on open Word. It would open some other program. And I told my friend, I said, what's going on? He goes, you have a virus in the computer. I said, can you help me? He goes, yeah, let me go ahead and help you out. So he brought an external hard drive. And he said, I'm going to go ahead and run antivirus through this. And he ran it. I had about 1,200 viruses in my computer. I said, is this going to fix my computer if you clean it? He goes, yes, but it's going to take about 3.5 hours. I said, okay. So I waited. And finally, he calls me up and says, Art, your computer's ready. I said, all right. So I go and I turn it on. It turned on really smoothly. I opened Word, and it opened really smoothly. It was a fresh start, and it felt good. Now, that taught me a lesson. Be careful what you download on your computer. So, maybe a fresh start is something good as we go ahead and encounter this new year. Maybe a fresh start is something good, a second chance. Would you like to have a second chance in some of the things you've done this year? Would you like to have a second chance some of the things that happened this year that you regret for whatever reason? Some probably it was a tough year at work. Maybe it was a tough year in school. Maybe you could have done better at work or school. Maybe you could have done better with the family. And it is important to know that with God, there's always a fresh start. It is important to know that no matter how messed up our lives are, God, in His mercy, is always willing to give us a fresh start. There is a way There is a way for us to be able to do a fresh start and be able to do a reset in our lives, but it has to be done in a certain way. And we have to follow the pattern. We have to follow each step. We can't miss any step that we're about to talk about, because if we do, we will mess things up even more. Let me talk to you about a fresh start. A fresh start, I want you to turn your Bibles over to the book of Joshua. You know, everybody knows Joshua 1:9 by memory, right? What does it say? Oh, there you go in Spanish. Sounds really beautiful, right? Mira que te mando que te esfuerces y seas valiente. No temas ni desmayes, porque Jehová tu Dios estará contigo donde quiera que vayas. That's heaven's language. That is the joke among Hispanics. I'm sorry, I'm Hispanic. Everybody knows how to quote Joshua 1:9. Don't be afraid. Be courageous, because I will be with you everywhere. But for you to get to verse 9, you have to start from verse 1. You see, the context of this beautiful verse is